In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Blender to do some motion graphics animation. We will take mostly images. We might have enough time to do some video and animate them in 3D space using Blender. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click on my cube, make sure it's selected, press X and delete. So what it's going to look like is we're going to have our camera looking straight forward on the y-axis, and then we'll have a variety of images that come in, and they can do everything from moving through 3D space to rotating to changing size over time. If we have enough time, we can bring in some video and maybe some text. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to right click to select my camera, and then I want to get my camera in a pretty specific spot. So I'm going to press the letter N as in number, and then this toolbar pops up over here on the right hand side. So with the camera selected, you can see up here I've got numbers for the location on all three axes and the rotation and the scale on all three axes. So I'm going to set the camera's location to 0, and I'm just pressing tab to get to all the other axes, and that places our camera directly at 0, 0, 0. Then I'll change the rotation to 0, and there we go. Okay, so that is actually a camera with no location and no rotation on it. I do want the camera to look up at the y-axis, so I'm going to come over here, and where it says rotation on the x-axis, I'll type in 90, press return, and now the camera's looking right there towards the positive y-axis. Excuse me. I am sick at the time of recording this. I apologize. I'll try not to cough into the microphone too much. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just move the camera back on my grid a little bit. You can kind of eyeball it, or if you want to be really precise, you can come up here where it says location, and maybe I'll just make that an even -6 on the y-axis, and there we go. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to press N to make that toolbar go away. And since I'm going to be animating, I'm going to be dealing with keyframes quite a bit. So I need my dope sheet editor down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right up here to this little divider line, and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to choose split area. And when I do that, you'll see that it creates this vertical cut. So I can either do that, or if I want to join them back together, put my mouse pointer right on the dividing line, right mouse click, choose join area, and then just move the arrow a direction and left click, and then they join together. If I'd rather have a horizontal cut, then I come over here to this divider line, get it on the divider line until I see those double arrows, right mouse click, left mouse click, split area, get it to where I want it to go, right about there, left click, and now I've got a new window here. So I think I'm going to leave it as a horizontal window here. And now I want to change this middle window here from a 3D view to a dope sheet. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come right down here, and in the bottom left hand corner of the 3D window, I'm going to click right on it. It's a little cube with double arrows. I'm going to come up here and I'll choose dope sheet. There we go. And right now I want to make this a little bit simpler for you. So I'm going to turn off the dope sheet summary in a little bit. You'll see it'll just take off a little bit of information. Okay, so now I've got my setup basically the way I want. So I'm going to save my file. So I'll do File, Save. Over here on the left hand side, I'll click on Desktop, and right up here where it says Untitled Blend, I'll go ahead and call this something like excuse me. I'll call this MG for motion graphics, and I'll call it image animation. Press return once, twice, and now I'm back into Blender, and you can see I've got the name of the blend file. Okay, so now here's where you get to have some fun. You can now go ahead and open up a favorite web browser and basically type in any topic that interests you. It can be a person, it can be a style of art, it can be a genre of art. It can be somebody that musician or artist that you're really into. It can be nature photography. You get the idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to go ahead and download about, I'd say maybe 6 or so different images that catch my eye. So maybe I'll go ahead and take this sort of Jackson Pollock rip off here. So you can download, when downloading images, you can download this version of the image, but I find that sometimes you want to click on the View Image button. That then gives you the larger version of the image. Now you can go ahead and download. So right mouse click, left mouse click, Save Image As, and let's go ahead and let's save it to the desktop. So I'm going to click on Desktop, and I'm going to go ahead, and if your save screen looks like this, let's click on the down arrow. Let's choose New Folder, and I'm just going to make a folder for my themes. So since I'm downloading abstract art, I'm going to create a folder that's called that. And I'm going to make sure I click on abstract art, and here we go, Jackson Pollock. And I may have said this wasn't a Jackson Pollock, and it might be. I'll be honest. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that up, and I'm going to pause the video, and I will download about 4 or 5 more, and then I'll see you back in Blender. Okay, we're back in Blender. I've downloaded a total of 4 images. There's not really much of a limitation as to how many images you can do, but here we go. So I've got these 4 images, and I just kind of chose the images, just what stood out to me. You will see that this third one here, the circular one here, it's smaller. It's a smaller image size. It's 300 by 302 pixels compared to the other ones, which are in the hundreds and the thousands. So this is a good one to just demo because it should be lower quality, lower resolution. So we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so back into Blender now that I've got my library of images that I want. And what I'm going to do is to animate images, we need to install an add-on. Make sure there's an add-on that's all set up. So we're going to do File, User Preferences, Add-ons, and then up here in the search window we're going to type in Images. And the one that we want to make sure that is checked on is this one right here, which says Import, Export, Import Images as Planes. And then come down here and make sure you click on Save User Settings. That way you never have to do this again. Okay, so the images are going to come in wherever our 3D cursor is. So let's go ahead and press Shift C, and that gets our 3D cursor right there in the center of our world. Okay, we'll now bring in the images. We're going to do Shift A to bring up the Add menu, and we're going to say Add Mesh. And now that we've installed that add-on, at the bottom of the Mesh menu is Images as Planes. So we're going to go ahead and choose that. And now Blender wants us to find those images. So over here on the left, I'm going to click on Desktop, and I made my folder called Abstract Art, so I'm going to click on Abstract Art. Now here are the images here, but if you ever want to see thumbnails of images, you can come right up here, and there are 3 little buttons. So you've got this first button here, which just shows you the name and how big each file is. You've got the second button here, which gives you date and time, things like that. But we want the third button here, and that basically gives us the thumbnail, which is a lot nicer. And you can also get out of this folder by clicking this little up folder here and going there, but I'm going to go back in. Okay, now before you get all excited about importing these or anything like that, we need to select them all. So all I'm doing is I'm left clicking and I'm dragging over all of them here. You of course can do this step multiple times if you want to skip one, but I'm bringing them all in. Now the most important thing is the settings. A lot of people forget this step. So let's say I bring all of these in and I forget these steps down here in the bottom left hand corner. Let's say I just click import. Great, yay, I've got the images in there. Now I know you don't see the images. We'll go ahead and we'll take care of that in a moment. But if you forgot to do those settings that I just showed you, I'm going to have you delete these by pressing X and saying delete. Because the steps that were in the bottom left hand corner are so very important, it's worth just doing this again. And you can see how fast I got back here. So I've got all 4 of those images selected. Okay, so now you want to come over here to where it says import images as planes. And you want to scroll down. And this is the important step right here. Material settings. We want to set shadeless. And that means that the images will come in nice and bright the way we downloaded them. They won't be affected by Blender's lighting. Okay, and that is pretty much it. Okay, now we can say import images as planes. Okay, so all 4 images come in. I'm going to press A to deselect them all. And you'll see that I can right mouse click and I can select any one of them. When you click on an image, down here in the bottom left hand corner, the plane will be named whatever the image was. So this image here was a Kandinsky, and so you can see it's actually named that. Now, the big problem is we can't see any of our textures or images, so that's a problem. So what I'm going to have you do is we want to turn on textures. So to do that, we're going to make sure that we have one more add-on installed, and we may have done this in class, but we want to make sure that we get the pie menu. And the pie menu is that when you have it installed, if you press the letter Z, if you press Z, you get these little, these are supposed to be called pie wedges here. And you can basically choose texture. Now if you press Z and you see that show up there, you can just choose texture, and now, ta-da, you'll see our images. Now if you press Z and you don't see those little pie wedge choices pop up there, that means you don't have the pie menu installed. So here's how to do that add-on. Come up to File, User Preferences, Add-ons. Up here in the top left, type in pie, P-I-E, and the one you want is the middle one here. It says pie menu, UI, pie menu official. So again, click on the little checkbox to install it, click on Save User Settings, close that window. Now when you press the letter Z, you'll get choices, and if you can go back to solid, that's what you get, Z, texture, and there are our images. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save by pressing Control S, left click. Okay, so I'm going to now go ahead and move these off to the side. I'm going to split my 3D window, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to do a vertical split right down the middle, and so to do that I'm going to come up here where this little black divider line is. When I see my double arrow, I'm going to right mouse click, I'm going to choose split area, and I'm just going to left click right down here in the middle. Okay. I'm going to hide these 2 toolbars here because they're taking up a lot of space. So I'll put my mouse pointer in this window, press T, and it's gone. Mouse pointer in this window, T, and it's gone. Okay, so I want one of these windows to be a 3D window, and then I want one of these windows to be a camera view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this right one my camera view. I'm going to put my mouse pointer right in it, and I'm going to press on my numpad on the right side of your keyboard, I'm going to press 0. And when I zoom in, I can see a better view. So basically these boundaries right here that are lit up, that's what the camera sees. Anything off of this, the camera will not see. Okay, so now I get to play director a little bit. So this is the fun part. So now I can take this painting here and maybe I'll move it here towards the center, and then I'll move it down. So maybe I'll do G, Z, and I can move it down, and it's off camera. Maybe this one, G, X, move it like that. This one here, maybe G, there we go. That'll be in the center, and this one here, maybe I'll have it do something like that, and you'll see in a moment. Okay, so the cool thing is that we're using 2-dimensional images in a 3D space. So I'm going to do a lot of my work over on the left window, and then the right window, the camera view, is just like me playing director, where I get to, of course, see what the heck's going on. So if I move this image forwards on the y-axis and closer to the camera, you'll see that it, of course, gets larger, and I can actually go right through it. And of course, you can see with this image, it's getting a little broken up, it's getting some pixelization. It's not looking so great, but it looks good from out here. Okay, So now, I'm going to save one more time. So now I can go ahead and I can start keyframing. I can start animating. So one thing to note before we start animating, over here on the right hand side, I'm going to make sure that I'm on the render panel. That's the one that looks like a little camera. I'm going to come on down here and you'll see it says start frame is 1, it says end frame is 250, and it says my frame rate is 24 FPS, which means frames per second, not first person shooter. So 24 frames per second. So that means that I've got, if I want to have a 10-second animation, what I want to do is I want to come down here to the timeline. I could also do it up over here. And instead of 250 frames, I would click inside here and type in 240, hit return, and now I have a 240 frame, 10-second long animation. So you can basically just, you can come up here to the little magnifying glass and do a spotlight search, and you can type in 24 and then times, which is the asterisk, and then how long do you want your animation to be? So if I want it to be 20 seconds long, I would need it to be 480 frames, and that would be a 20-second long animation. So you can figure out your frames of animation just like that. I'm going to stick with a 10-second animation and keep things fairly simple. Okay, so my first animation, and actually, you know what I'm thinking about? This is starting to become quite a long animation or long screencast. I think I'll break it up now so I don't lose viewers, and I'll do the actual animation in the second part. So I'll see you in the second part, and that way we can save a little bit of time.